When Demet Özdemir finally decided to break her silence, the entertainment world stopped to listen. For years, fans have been asking the same question: could she and Yaman ever find their way back to each other? Their story has been told and retold, analyzed in magazines, whispered about in fan forums, and turned into countless headlines. But what has always been missing is Demet's own voice. Now, for the first time in a long time, she has spoken, and what she revealed sent shockwaves through her fans. The relationship between Demet and Ken was never ordinary. It began on the set of Erkenci Kuş, a romantic comedy that captured millions of hearts. What was supposed to be just another TV drama suddenly became a real-life fairy tale, or so it seemed. Their chemistry was undeniable, their looks magnetic, and the way they looked at each other lit up the screen. Almost immediately, rumors began to spread that something deeper was going on behind the cameras. For a while, both Demet and Ken tried to stay professional, insisting they were just colleagues. But the truth had a way of leaking through: secret glances, shared moments, and subtle gestures that told a much bigger story than words ever could. Then, just as fans began to believe they were witnessing a love story straight out of a movie, everything collapsed. The two stars went their separate ways, focusing on their careers, and suddenly, the fairy tale seemed broken. Demet's personal life took a different path: marriage, struggles, and heartbreak, while Ken became the globe-trotting bachelor, conquering Italy and making headlines for his every move. For years, the silence between them was deafening. Fans begged for answers, but neither of them gave any. Every time they were asked, they either changed the subject or brushed it off with polite smiles. But time has a way of changing everything. And now, Demet has finally opened up. In her own words, she admitted that silence doesn't mean indifference, and distance doesn't mean forgetting. The emotions, the memories, the history they shared, it never fully disappeared. And when she was asked directly about the possibility of getting back with Yaman, her answer was not the expected no. Instead, her voice trembled, her eyes seemed to betray the emotions she was fighting to control, and she gave an answer that left millions speechless. She didn't deny it. She didn't shut the door. She hinted at something deeper, a story that perhaps was never really over. Demet's revelation did not come in the form of a dramatic press conference or a carefully scripted statement. It came quietly, almost unexpectedly, during an interview where she was asked about her past, her present, and what the future might hold. At first, she gave the usual answers, about focusing on her career, about her passion for acting, about her upcoming projects. But then, the question that everyone had been waiting for slipped in: do you ever think about Yaman? And would you ever consider being with him again? The room grew tense. For a moment, Demet smiled as if trying to brush it off. But then, something shifted. She took a breath, her eyes softened, and she answered in a way that no one expected. She didn't give a clear yes, nor did she firmly say no. Instead, she admitted that there are certain people in life who leave a mark that time cannot erase. And in that moment, fans felt they were witnessing her heart speak louder than her mind. Her words quickly spread across social media like wildfire. Within minutes, hashtags like #DemetandCan, #LoveShock, and #BackTogether began trending. Fans flooded Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok with old clips of the two actors laughing together, stolen moments from behind-the-scenes videos, and interviews where their chemistry had once been undeniable. The internet was alive again with the possibility that maybe, just maybe, their story wasn't finished. What made Demet's words even more powerful was the contrast with her past silence. For years, she had kept her distance, even avoiding questions about Ken whenever she could. She had been through her own struggles, her marriage that ended too soon, the criticisms she faced in the press, and the endless comparisons to every woman linked to Ken. And yet, here she was, finally giving fans what they had been craving: honesty. But Demet didn't stop there. She spoke about regret, not as a confession of guilt, but as an acknowledgement of how difficult it is to walk away from someone who once meant everything. She admitted that sometimes silence is easier than explaining pain, and that her choice to keep quiet all these years wasn't about forgetting Ken, but about protecting herself. Her words were raw, emotional, and real, and that is why they hit so hard. And of course, all eyes immediately turned to Yaman. Would he respond? Would he stay silent? Or would he finally admit what fans had always suspected, that his feelings for Demet were never completely gone? At that moment, the story shifted from being about Demet's confession to becoming a mystery waiting to be solved. What would Can do now that the silence had been broken? After Demet's words exploded across the media, all eyes immediately turned to Yaman. For years, he had mastered the art of staying untouchable, always one step ahead of gossip, always hiding his true emotions behind charisma and confidence. But this time, the silence was not his. It was Demet who had spoken, and the weight of her confession hung in the air, demanding an answer. Italian tabloids were the first to react. Headlines screamed, "Demet speaks of Can again, and the love story that refuses to die." In Turkey, the story was no different. Morning shows, gossip columns, and entertainment magazines all speculated about what this meant. Was Demet ready to give love another chance? Was Can secretly waiting for this moment all along? The speculation was endless, and fans were glued to their screens, refreshing their feeds for the smallest sign of Can's reaction. And then came the whispers. Sources close to Can hinted that he was moved by Demet's words, that he had watched the interview more than once, and that his usually guarded expression had softened when he heard her voice. A friend allegedly told the press, "For Can, Demet was never just a chapter. She was the story itself." Hearing her speak like this shook him deeply. Whether this was fact or fiction didn't matter. By then, the fans had already built their own narrative, one filled with hope, longing, and the possibility of reconciliation. Demet's fans were divided. Some cheered, saying this was destiny calling them back together. Others warned her to be careful, reminding her of the heartbreak and chaos that came with their story the first time around. But one thing was clear, no one could ignore the emotions in her voice. This wasn't scripted drama, it was real. Meanwhile, Can himself seemed to play with the attention. On his social media, he shared cryptic posts, a song lyric about second chances, a photo of a sunset captioned with a single heart emoji, and even a throwback picture that fans swore was taken during the Erkenci days. Was this his way of answering Demet? Or was he simply feeding into the frenzy? No one knew for sure, but every post became headline news, every emoji dissected like a hidden code. The idea of them reuniting wasn't just about romance, it was about healing. Both of them had walked difficult paths since their breakup. Demet with her marriage and heartbreak, Can with the pressures of international fame and constant scrutiny. Perhaps that was why fans were so desperate for this reunion. It symbolized more than just love. It was about two people finding their way back to something true in a world full of noise. As the days passed, the speculation only grew. Entertainment journalists began digging deeper, paparazzi started following their every move, and even their closest friends were questioned for clues. Would they meet in secret? Would they dare to be seen together again? Or was this just a fleeting moment of honesty that would fade away like so many rumors before it? One thing was certain, Demet's silence had been broken, and nothing would ever be the same again. The pressure around both Demet and Can reached a boiling point. Everywhere they went, reporters shouted questions, fans held up signs begging for answers, and social media was consumed by one single thought: could this be the beginning of a second chapter? Demet, usually private and careful, surprised everyone again. In another interview, she admitted that she and Can had shared something so intense, so unique, that it was impossible to erase. She didn't call it love directly, but she described it as a bond that never really left. Those words were enough to set off another storm. Fans called it a confession. Journalists called it a hint. And Can? He stayed quiet, but his silence only made the anticipation stronger. Behind the cameras, insiders claimed there had been contact. A late-night phone call, a brief exchange of messages, rumors swirled that Demet and Can had already spoken privately since her confession went public. One anonymous source told a magazine, "They are not rushing into anything, but there is communication. There is respect. There are emotions that never died." Whether or not that was true, it was enough to make fans believe in miracles again. The emotional weight of this possible reunion wasn't just about nostalgia, it was about redemption. For Demet, it was the chance to step out of the shadow of a painful marriage and reclaim the love story fans had always believed in. For Can, it was the opportunity to show that behind the glamorous image and international fame, there was still a man capable of vulnerability, of love, of choosing something real over the noise of celebrity life. And as speculation continued, fans themselves began to craft the ending they hoped for. On Twitter, thousands of posts imagined scenarios: a secret dinner in Rome, a walk along the Bosphorus, a quiet meeting away from the cameras. Edits and fan videos flooded TikTok and Instagram, combining old clips with romantic music, painting the picture of a love that had been paused but not erased. Demet's decision to finally speak has changed everything. For years, her silence was taken as rejection, as proof that the story had ended. But now, with just a few trembling words, she reopened a door that everyone thought had been closed forever. Whether she and Can walk through it together remains to be seen, but one thing is undeniable: the love story of Demet Özdemir and Can Yaman is alive again, not as a memory, but as a possibility. The final question remains: will they take that chance? Will they dare to risk it all, knowing the world is watching? Only Demet and Can know the truth. But for millions of fans across the globe, the dream has returned, and sometimes, the dream is enough to keep hope alive.